All right, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining today for Simplifying Code Compliance with Modular Handrails. It's presented by the team at Promenade. We've got Rob Geller here as well as Janice Sina, who are going to be presenting today's topic and here to answer all of your questions. My name is Bo. I'm here with Acelab. We're helping out with hosting today's event. Just a few quick reminders from me. We do have a Q&A box, so feel free to submit any questions throughout today's webinar, and we'll either get to those on the fly or have some time to answer them towards the end of the event. And also, if you'd like to ask a question out loud, feel free to raise your hand. There's a little like raise hand button at the bottom of, well, maybe it's not at the bottom of your screen, but wherever your like Zoom controls are, you can raise your hand. I'll keep my eye on that, and we can unmute folks who would like to talk about their question out loud. You don't have to turn your video on, so I promise it's not super scary, but we would love to hear from y'all if you're feeling brave and want to ask a question out loud. I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Helen. Helen is Acelab's Director of Architectural Experience. She's going to give a quick little intro about Acelab, how you can use it, how you can find Promenade on Acelab to get in touch with them after today's event. And feel free to reach out to us if you'd like some more information about Acelab and using it for your building product research. We'll give you some options to indicate your interest in the polls and in the survey. All right, Helen, feel free to take it away.
Cool, thanks, Bo. Can y'all see my screen? Is that?
Yep.
Yep.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. So I'm Helen, and I'm here to show y'all how you can get in touch with Promenade after the fact. So what you're going to do here is in Acelab's main search bar. We're going to go over here and select brands, and we're going to type in Promenade here. And then we'll be able to go to their page and see all of their different products that they have. Also, the ability to contact them directly if you have any questions. Once you hit that contact button, what's going to happen is up here in your conversations tool, you'll be able to then start a conversation with them and have a nice like running list of whatever that is, whatever information you might be needing. So that's a way to get in touch, and also just a way to keep track of your conversations you're having with other product reps. Really quickly, I'm going to share one other little tidbit with y'all. This is the project screen. So part of Acelab is not just here for CEUs and webinars, but to really build out your firm's material research processes and libraries as well. So I'll just quickly take y'all to a firm library. This is where you can store all of your products. Really helpful, organized by master format division here. And then one other little fun tip, I always like to go to Windows, is y'all can also compare these. So if you'd like a free tutorial, 15 minutes to talk about challenges you might be having at your firm and how to set up a free material library, and then this allows people, especially if you're hiring new folks, to just come in and get going very quickly, seeing all the different comparison information side by side. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and answer on that poll. And at that, I will pass it back over to Bo.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. All right, yeah, feel free to answer that poll. I believe Helen will also drop her meeting link in the chat in case anybody wants to just book a meeting right now. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and hand it over to Rob and Janice, who are going to be presenting today's course, Simplifying Code Compliance with Modular Handrail Systems. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and yeah, feel free to take it away whenever you guys are ready.
Oh, we're ready. We've done a few of these, and thanks so much, Bo and Helen. We've been working with Acelab for a little over a year now, I think about a year. And it's really a great platform and a way to connect on all levels. So my name's Rob Geller. I am co-owner of Promenade Handrails. We're located in Montreal. Janice is my marketing guru. She's located in Newtown, Connecticut. And so she and I will present together. She'll jump in if I'm forgetting anything or wants to answer any questions. And really, as Bo said, we really encourage questions. Zoom is a painful experience. I think at best, we've all been zoomed out. So we love to make this a conversation. So I'm gonna let me share my screen here. Yeah, that should do it. We as a manufacturer work direct with all of our clients. We have no distributors, no wholesalers. Handrails are a funny thing, and they can be deceptively complicated, and our system is new, and it's actually pretty cool, which you'll see. We'll talk more about it later. But as part of that, we get exposed to a lot of the changes that come along during the course of the planning and construction of any project. And this, we sometimes call them the red clouds of death. We see these come through, and they could be for a multitude of reasons. We become very familiar, of course, just by default on what is required for the code. So there we go. This isn't what today is. I'm not getting into what the code is. It's just an endless rabbit hole of exceptions, overlaps, conflicts, whatever. And you can really read it anywhere. What we want to talk about today mostly is how to apply the code. We want to, as I said, we want to have a conversation. So what we'll do today is really a high-level view, just to set the stage, in case you want some perspective on who does what and what comes from where. We're not going to get into the minutia of it, but who the authorities are and what acts govern the various codes. And we've got a little bit on the US and Canada. So because we've had a number of Canadian architects, which is nice, or having our fellow Canadians on. We supply handrails throughout all of Canada, all of the US, New Zealand, Australia, Norway, and expanding to further parts of Asia. So we see codes coming at us from all angles. We'll talk a bit about the overarching principles, regardless of the multitude of codes that are out there. There are common threads through them all. But most importantly, we'll talk about not what the code is, but how can you apply it either in your planning or on the job site with some really practical applications. There's more than one way of going about it and complying. And over the course of our 13 or 14 years in business, we've seen a lot of sort of misunderstandings of what the code is supposed to be. So just as a quick overview for the United States, you've got I didn't take out the one for Canada. I've got another page on that. But you've got, everybody's familiar. These are the ones we deal with most commonly. The ADA, which was enacted in 1990. The last update for the segment of the ADA that applies to construction was updated in 2010. The building codes themselves, the International Building Code, the Residential Code comes from the International Code Council. And then you've got occupational safety and health. You've got the American Society of Civil Engineering and some other acts, the Fair Housing Act. We've had cases where there was, let's say, colorful discussion between a builder and the planner or advisor, which code and which document was going to be followed. We just said, you guys figure it out, let us know, we'll govern ourselves accordingly. But then you have state and provincial standards that might differ, and then you have local and municipal standards. So you've got a national body that's being modified at a state level, and then being modified again and implemented at the local level. So, and if I go back to the 2 slides, this is one of the reasons we're not talking about what's in the code. There's just a tremendous amount of overlap, and I think whoever invented the Venn diagram is probably spinning in their grave right now. The major, the primary codes that we end up dealing with usually are the ADA and the IBC, International Building Code, which is, although it's called International Building Code, that's commercial. So, and then there's the residential code. While they have a lot of things in common, the definitions of what's commercial, what's public, what's residential aren't exactly the same between the two, but they're pretty close, especially with respect to commercial establishments. The ADA covers grab bars, building code doesn't. And really the big division or big differentiator is the ADA is about accessibility, that anybody and everybody can use the facility, where the building code is more about safety. In Canada, we have the National Building Code that was last updated in 2015, and it's from our National Research Council. Very similar, but in general, codes in Canada are less specific than in the US, and that's got its pros and cons to it. One, it's more open to interpretation by inspectors, so it gives them latitude, which, depending on the situation, can be helpful. In others, it's not so helpful. We've seen inspectors applying code in such a way that is really over the top and unnecessary. And it's at their discretion. You may have an inspector applying a code in a certain way one day, and then the next day they're not. So, and then because there's more latitude in our codes, the territorial and provincial codes would be more restrictive or specific. So, but regardless of all that, really the overarching factors that go into all of them are what you see on the screen here. The strength, so they got to support a certain, they must have a certain load bearing, whether it's a handrail or a guardrail. We'll talk about those. They must be continuous clearance from the wall. So continuity and clearance are kind of intertwined. It's so the hand can always stay on the handrail. The height is, while it seems like a simple thing, as you'll see in some of the photos I'm going to show, maintaining that height can be really tricky. The length, where is it supposed to start? Where is it supposed to stop? Again, seems like a simple question, but not always. You know, if it's not just where it's going to stop, how do you terminate it? What are you going to attach it to? When is a horizontal needed? There's some misconceptions about that. Graspability governs the shape of the handrail. This is where it's going eventually, round. It's got to be graspable. And then you get into options of when you're on a ramp or an elevated surface, what kind of edge protection, what kind of stability can you offer? And that's more of a safety thing. When do you have bilateral handrails versus just on one side? When is infill needed? When is it not needed? And then, of course, kind of intertwined, what are the dimensions of the stairs? That's governed by code. We're not going to talk about that specifically today, but data shows that if stairs aren't built very consistently, that even a very small difference between the riser of one step and the riser of the next one, which is really just a couple of fractions of an inch or a couple of millimeters, you get a lot of tripping and falling, even with that little bit of variance. So those are important. The ADA talks a lot about just what's the environment like. Do you have good lighting? Is there no clutter? So those are, well, some of those aren't code. It's sort of common sense. And again, one of the overarching things is you have all these conflicts. What it really should come down to is if you have conflicting code requirements, safety should be the deciding factor. So if a handrail is supposed to extend X amount, but there's a doorway, well, you're not going to obstruct the doorway, for example, or aisles in movie theaters and clubs, for example. So it should be safety and common sense applied as well. We don't always see it, but should be. So what I want to do now is hopefully show you some photos just that talks to these. 1 second, I'm going to do that. 1 second. So the first thing that is really critical is the strength. So how do you make sure that whatever forces are being applied, it's not going to come out of the wall? And we've got a couple of, where is the, I know why. Where's the AIA? So this picture, seemingly simple, but you know, you want these brackets have to be really strong. You can see that they've got the clearance for the passage of the hand, and they're hitting the studs. And one of the things our system can do, which I'll show you after, is you can position the brackets anywhere you want so it hits the stud. If you've got blocking in the wall and it's all preset, that's great. But for retrofits and renovations, it can be a real challenge. One of the main differences between the US and Canada, and this also applies to Australia, New Zealand, a lot of the Commonwealth countries. The clearance between the handrail and the wall in the US is 1.5 inches, but in Canada, it's 2 inches. So you have to be aware of those subtle differences. Not a major issue. A lot of handrail manufacturers will manufacture one style of bracket and provide a spacer. Some will have, you know, their Canadian version and the US version. So, so now one of the challenges, of course, is the continuity. How do you make sure that a railing is continuous? So when you've got a switchback like this, you've got to accomplish two things. It has to be continuous, but it also has to maintain the height. So you've got to have these sort of creative and sort of sometimes wonky looking curves and bends. What we have, and it would be wonderful if people could, we'd like everybody to kind of be able to use it. Where is the, oh, here we are. So I'm going to just show you this first. This is a pretty simple schematic of the difference between residential and commercial or ADA. You got a commercial 12-inch horizontal at the top, and it has to extend to the bottom. But you know how you, I'll show you a couple of examples of sort of challenges of when you're on an open stairway or different situations, how to extend it. Then, if you need it, wrap it around. We'll get photos from clients, and they don't really realize we need to know, you know, we need to know these dimensions. These have a real impact on what that configuration of the handrail is going to be to keep it at 36 inches height all the time. Now, if this dimension right here was always about 11 or 12 inches, life would be really simple because the handrail would just continue to descend to this point where it's at 36 inches, and you go horizontally around and horizontally around the next corner, and you're good to go. But of course, that doesn't always happen. So you end up with a situation like that. So then the question becomes horizontals. You know, on a ramp, everybody. Here's one of the big sort of misconceptions. I can't tell you how many times we've been asked for a D loop. There's no such thing as a D loop. What you need at the end of a ramp is a horizontal. You don't need a loop. The only reason for the loop is to keep the rest, to keep that horizontal supported. Let me see, here's a good example. So here's a ramp that we did in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Not a great angle, but you can see the bend there. So it horizontals out, and that's all that matters. How it finishes is really immaterial. This is code compliant. It's more than a foot, but that doesn't matter. This is code compliant. If they made a loop, that's all code compliant. Horizontals don't have to be in the direction that the handrail is running. So both of these are code compliant. So I'll show you how we accomplish all this. So really, what you need is a system that easily creates these shapes and bends that you don't have to go back to a fabricator or a welder, because they can be pretty precise. So our system can be adjusted on the fly on the job site. Then you get into one of the other things I wanted to talk about is horizontal. This is one of the elements in the code is that you see handrails in senior living residences all the time, in hospitals. There's no code requirement to put in a horizontal handrail. But if you do, it has to comply. So if you are putting in a handrail by choice and not by code, it still has to meet the criteria. So you have to have the weight bearing requirements. It has to be continuous. It has to have the clearance, all the things that are required. So either zero handrail on the wall or a code compliant. Those are the choices. Excuse me. And sometimes you get into not only do you have all kinds of angles. So this is another way to extend. If you need to extend beyond the bottom step, you can extend it out and bring it back. Sorry, I'm just. This is another client of ours. This talks to a number of things. One is that because of the height of the drop off on the inside, you have to have a guardrail, which is 42 inches, and you have to have infill. This was already in place. This isn't ours, but they needed to add. But when there's stairs, now you have to add the secondary handrail, and it's got to be code compliant and continuous. So we were able to supply this in really just a matter of days. There's no, as I said, no bending, welding, custom work on that.
Hey, Rob, we
Yep.
had a question come in.
Sure.
Someone's asking, don't sometimes handrails need the D-loop so that they aren't protruding objects if they are not attached to a wall?
That's a good question. I think it depends on, is it causing an obstruction or a safety risk? It doesn't need, I don't think it necessarily needs to be a loop, but if the loop, if there's something that would be below the loop that you don't want to interfere with, sure, but it would really have to be I'd have to see sort of an image or a picture of it. But if for example, going straight into the ground, like, well, this is a loop as well, by the way. I mean, it doesn't have to be a D loop. It could be, whatever you want to call this loop. So whether it's like that or the one that I showed earlier, let me see if this one. Let's say, for example, if doing this was going to cause a safety, it was going to be a safety hazard, and doing a D loop was the less, the safer option. Sure, but do you have to do a D loop? It really depends on the situation. Did I answer that clearly enough?
We'll allow them to chat back in if they
Yeah.
have further questions. Thanks, Rob.
Okay. There it is. Now, here's a guardrail that we're doing for the Orlando Utilities Commission. You'll notice there's no secondary handrail because it's a horizontal surface. So this is the 42-inch height, but because there's no incline or slope or stairs, you don't need the secondary handrail. You do need infill, which we also provide. And infill can be done a multitude of ways. These, this is a client of, this is actually in Australia. We don't supply the glass. They were able to attach these clamps to our system and put the glass in. That works. The infill that you see here, and we've also developed a pretty cool infill system that goes in really quickly for situations like movie theaters. So movie theaters, we were talking about exceptions. Movie theaters, clubs, comedy clubs, you know, the theater where there's something like an aisle, all kinds of exceptions. So you've got a terraced seating and there's a drop off in front of this. But there is an exception because it's a movie theater. So for practical purposes, this is only about 2 feet high. Doesn't have to be 42 inches, I think for obvious reasons. Or something like this when you have an aisle. So it can't, by, you know, the very nature of it, has to be broken up. So all of these can comply. And here's one last thing I think I wanted to look. Oh, yeah, you're asking about the D loop. It can be like this, you know. I mean, let's say this was a ramp and went out horizontally. It doesn't have to be a D, as long as you have that stable extension, whether it's for the stairs on the angle or at the end of a ramp. As long as it's got the weight bearing, whatever the shape is, really doesn't matter. So but we also run into, residentially, you might run into this, especially with, you know, retrofits, where you've got windowsills and all kinds of things in the way. You've got to be able to get around them. So we've got a system that you can actually just lock these with an Allen key, and I'll show you in a minute, and have these hanging bends that are rock solid and maintain that clearance. So full disclosure, that's my in-laws' house. So they've got a lot of our stuff throughout the their place. And when we're talking about entertainment, this is another job that we did. The same job where I showed the ramp in Rock Hill. This is a performance stage, and when they're not performing, the property owners wanted this. When there's no performance, they wanted a protective guardrail. But we also designed it so that it could be taken off really quickly and easily when they're and put back when there is a performance. So so basically, when you get a I'm just going to close these. So essentially what happens is we get a call and we want to, it can be either in the planning phase, does this comply? How can I comply? Could I change the plans so it's easier to comply? We get a lot of calls on a Thursday for some reason, or a Friday because the building inspector is coming next Tuesday, and it's always Tuesday for some reason, or the building inspector has been there and something didn't conform. So we want to be able to solve that problem. So we can, this is actually one of our systems that we can do in all wood. So that's the slide that was supposed to come up, but it's inevitable. Somebody's either going to notice something before the construction or during the construction, or the inspector is going to come. The as-built is not going to be as precise as the architectural plans. You just never know what's going to happen. we had a job in Boston a number of years ago. It was 4-story switchback staircase, both sides of the building, and not a single one of those switchbacks, though that 180 turning around, were the same dimensions. So fortunately, we were able to our system was able to be modified on the fly and all. But all the while, you want to protect the design, the creativity, the style, the schedule. The schedule is what the schedule is. And you don't want to break the budget. So what our system does, really, I'll just give a quick background where this came from. But 2008, 2009, a family friend had to put handrails in his house. He was an architect, well-known architect here in Montreal. Had polio as a child, so he needed some really elegant, really strong, reliable handrails. 4 flights of stairs in his house built into the side of the mountain here. And his only solution at the time was custom-made stainless handrails, custom bent, welded. They'd miss the weld, it would miss the stud. Took him 6 months, $15,000 or $20,000. So he had this, I guess, suspicion, or he was convinced there wasn't a practical handrail on the market, and he had looked everywhere. But so he called his nephew, who is also a friend of mine, and here's where we, I guess, we want to call it stars aligning or being fortunate. He had this, the uncle had this idea that it had to be so simple that anybody could install it. And his idea was, he only saw the brackets being put in the wrong place. He says, you got to be able to put the bracket wherever you want. Fortunately, my business partner and the inventor of the system, his name's Kel Warshaw. He happens to be the person who invented, designed, and manufactured the world's first ADA compliant hand dryer. And that challenge was, at the time, hand dryers protruded 7 inches from the wall. They had to protrude 4 inches. You can't just push them into the wall. So he had to figure out how to shrink all that down and still, have a functional hand dryer. So his starting point was the ADA code. And I think by default, if you're in the building materials manufacturing, you have to comply with code. A lot of manufacturers, they'll produce something. Yep, it complies with code. Figure out how to install it. Our driving principle before that was, it has to be simple. So if we're gonna do something that complies with code, that's not good enough. It has to be so simple that anybody can install it and comply. So this is the bracket. The handrail, the profile of the handrail is this. So you, where's the, I've lost my, so I hope you can see that. I'm looking for the, oh, there's the, and 1 second. Oh, there, hang on. There we go. So that's the profile of the handrail. This bracket goes wherever you want. Just put it in, slide it, locked in place. Each bracket will hold 500 pounds, even if you only if you get 2 screws in the stud. And you pivot to whatever angle you want. So it'd be, so one of the calls we often get, because we sell through our website, through Amazon, a lot of customers is just homeowners. We sell direct to homeowners or to the world's largest construction companies. They'll buy it, and we have a flat end cap option. It just fastens with a little set screw. The building inspector shows up and goes, no, you have to have a wall return. So our whole system's modular, different cut. We have it in the same color, obviously, but pop it in, and there you've got your wall return. So Takes 2 seconds, pop the offending flush fit end cap out, put the wall return in. You've got your certificate of occupancy. You can do whatever you need to do.
We had a few things come in, Rob.
Yep.
Yeah, so someone was talking about a project where they had a 12-story building. It was healthcare, and the clearance had to be not less than 2¼ inches.
Yep.
So maybe a good time to talk about the spacer with the sprocket lock.
Right. Let me see. We have, do I have I've got, no, I don't have a sprocket lock. So either bracket that we have, actually, we have on our website, we call it our configurator, and it's just like a when you're buying a car, you can just switch up the colors and see what everything looks like. The end cap style, we have 2 styles of bracket, and we sell it by the inch, and we do for our commercial clients. In fact, also for homeowners, send us the plans. We have 4 or 5 architectural drafters on staff, so we do a complete itemized takeoff, 3D renders, shop drawings that are stamped and approved if they need to be. So we want to take as much of the burden off of you as possible. Send us the plans, we'll send you all the detail. I'm going to go to get the 2¼ let's see, accessories. So this collar, this is a 1-inch spacer. We have a 1/2 inch spacer, and if it's got to be 2¼ it may require maybe some small amount of shimming or something behind.
The rule was not less than 2¼
Yeah, so you would have to build something out to get you to the 2¼
And then we have another one that came in. For exterior commercial stair, are you still required to have handrails on both sides of the stair if it's not part of means of egress?
Now you're getting into the minutia. I can't remember, but sometimes it depends on the width of the stairs too. I know that beyond a certain width, you have to have both sides and even one down the center. I think you do, but regardless, if what we're really focusing on is if you do, whatever it is you decide, it's leave it with us to figure out how to get it done. We don't want to put the burden on you or the builder or the homeowner, whoever it's going to be. So I could look that up and get back to you, but I can't remember off the top of my head when 1 versus 2 are required. But right there in the nature of the question, well, it's egress, it's outside versus it's indoors. You go inside a commercial building, we'll get a photo from a customer who's got a commercial building, and it's a picture of the stairs. It's a multifamily building. Is that inside one of the apartments or condos or dwellings, or is that a common stair? If it's a common stair, different code. If it's inside one of the apartments, residential code. So even within the same building, feet from each other, you would have different codes applying. So again, is it indoor, is it outdoor? How wide is the stair? Is it egress? Is it, what is it? So
awesome. While we're on the website, I think we're thinking the same thing, the lighting and the
Yes.
wood wrapped handrails.
Yes. So we, because of, like I said, not required by code, but the instant everybody saw this channel in the railing, of course, they said, oh, you have to have LED lighting. Of course we do. But this is a modular system. We never know where the bend is going to be. We never know where the brackets are going to be. So we had to develop a modular LED system so this is custom design, proprietary to Promenade. We're using it for it's indoor outdoor, so that the construction job in Orlando with that 450-foot elevated walkway, the entire length is illuminated. And one of the reasons, probably it's the reason that we were awarded the job, was the original spec was galvanized painted steel with holes drilled in it for the lights and the wiring. And this is really a showcase project for Jacobs Architecture and the construction company and the Orlando Utilities Commission. So we're doing a lot of clubs, movie theaters, homes that have these as well. I wonder if what was I talking? Oh, one of the things I want to mention, and I didn't, we're talking about continuity. One of the things that, of course, Kel knew right off the bat and David experienced was all this custom bending. And once it's sort of done and on the job site, it really can't be adjusted, like that job we did in Boston. So we have a system that is, you can just, I'm just going to loosen that, and it's essentially like ductwork. And you just get it to whatever angle you want, and then tighten it up, and it's just done with a hex screw. And somebody was thinking ahead, not me, who knew the code, that would be Kel. The standard slope for a stairway is 32 degrees. So we have a 32-degree bend. This one right here is a 32. And it's really just 2 halves of a bend that attach to it's a sprocket with teeth on it. So 132-degree bend, you just attach a section of railing to either side, boom, you've got a 32-degree bend. The standard slope change for a ramp is 5 degrees. So we have a 5-degree bend. Then you can combine them in, you can put them together in combinations of 1, 2, or 3 and create just about any angle you need. And then just, as I showed you, tighten it down with an Allen key. Because no matter what the plans show, is that angle going to be exactly what it is? Maybe, but quite often not. So you can just make those micro adjustments on the fly. So let me see.
Wood wrapped handrails, Rob?
Wood wrapped. Okay, let me go back to our. So for indoors, oops, sorry. We have an oak. Oh, I know. I'm going to go back to that slide right there. These handrails right here, these are Promenade handrails. That is oak, but it's wrapped around this aluminum extrusion. So it's a thin layer of oak. We also do walnut. So it's about it uses about 1/50 the amount of wood than a solid wood handrail. Counterintuitively to me, because it's so thin, it's actually stronger. It takes on the properties of the aluminum. So it's more dent resistant, it's environmental, and it's real wood. So and we're also developing, this is a first crack at, it's funny, nobody asks for something until they see that it doesn't exist. So when we came out with the wood handrails, We had all the hardware is zinc. So we had, different finishes of zinc for it. And immediately somebody says, well, do you have them in wood? So it took us a while, but we're coming out with a solid wood adjustable bend sometime later this year. The handrails, by the way, this is anodized aluminum, which is perfect for indoors, outdoors, showers. We do, wrap around in baths and showers with the same materials and components. And we also have a powder coat white. So we're basically available in anodized, powder coat, or wood. And there's a couple of different anodized finishes. And you can see a lot of our work if you go to gallery. The other thing I would recommend is on our website, you can create an account to submit any kind of request for quotes and see all the work that we've done for you in the past, check up on orders. And we have, the price list in this section gives the pricing for the trade professionals. So which is discounted. I'm just checking on the time here.
While you have the gallery open, Rob, maybe the glass mounted photo.
Oh yeah. Oh right. So here's something with the there you can see the elegance of the lighting system. There's an indoor outdoor. This, by the way, was installed by a guy in Colorado who's building his own home. He had never seen Promenade. Most of these photos are first-time installers. So he was able to do this. A secondary handrail. We'll go to our system also mounts on glass. Again, we don't do the glass, but everything else you see there is our hardware. Again, this was a gentleman who had never installed Promenade before, and he did it in his own home. Did a really nice job. Yeah, you get some sort of wonky angles. And what you see in here actually is our new post base that we just came out with. When we first started the company, we had a horizontal silver handrail. That was basically it. And everything we've developed has either been because we knew the code required it, or we would hear the comments and laments from our customers. And one of the continuous complaints we heard, not about our system, but just in general, was we have so many clients putting in ADA compliant ramps. How do they get the post straight? So shimming, core drilling, pouring forms, making sure you have the forms poured in place before you pour the concrete. What if it's a wood, structure? What am I going to do? So we've invented a very unique post base. So what you can see here, it's right now it's set to vertical, but as you can see, the construction of it is not quite flat. So as you rotate it, it offsets the angle. Not sure you can, it's hard to see on here, but this would be vertical. So, and installs with one expansion bolt. You don't need 4 big bolts. You don't need core drilling, anything. Just one bolt into the concrete or a through bolt into the wood, whatever it is. And it'll give you commercial grade strength. And so you can see some of the things. So same stuff, showers, the grab bar it's a compromise. Where are the studs? Where do I think I'm going to need it? Doesn't matter. So this is pretty sure Miami Beach. This picture's got to be about a number of years old. So really, really durable for outdoors. Oh yeah, here's a close-up of how now this wasn't our intention to make a removable system, but when the question came our way, we were able to figure out how to do it. So just because, you know, it's not in our literature or doesn't exist, if it doesn't exist, we usually figure out, invent a product to do it. So Boston College, this was an interesting one. This is one of the lecture halls. They were replacing the handrails, but they had to go on these wood panels because these are soft acoustic panels that can't take anything. Anything being screwed into it won't support anything. These existed. Our system was the only one that could do it because we could put the brackets wherever you want. Similar to, let me see where that is. This is a hospital. So we do all of Baptist Medical Center in Jacksonville. We've got about 15,000 feet of handrail in there. So they wanted to continue the handrail. This is a cardiopulmonary clinic in Pittsburgh. They had to hit the mullions. Nobody could do it. So 5 minutes. So this gave them the strength. It gave them the clearance. This attaches right to the structure here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That'll hold 3,000 pounds. So complying with code is something we want to. We can't make the decision for you. That's, you know, up to the inspector on any given day. We can look at your plans and identify issues that you may encounter, or maybe changes that will make life easier. Or depending on what the decision is by the authorities, we'll design the system to conform to that. So that is really it in maybe a big nutshell. But if there are any questions, please feel free to throw them out now, or you can email us through the platform. We'd be happy to answer. If you have any code questions for any projects you have, send them along. We can't make the decision. We can't necessarily give you a definitive answer, but we can certainly, I think one of the important things here out of all this is knowing what questions to ask. And what questions to ask of the inspector, and knowing what your options are. So we're happy to help you with that too.
So, thank you, Rob. Reminder to everyone, if anyone's got some last minute questions, feel free to either type them into the Q&A or raise your hand and I can unmute you. We can do that as well. I did have somebody emailed me, I think the person who asked the question about the D loop. So they emailed me an illustration, which I'll share my screen in a moment, can share with everyone. They said, I can't send images in the chat, but for sure D-loops are sometimes required, and they shared this illustration here. So just figured we could share this with everyone else. Yeah.
Certain, and if a D-loop is required, we can do it. And we're not here to change the habits and thinking and opinions. That's you know, we're a small company, and we know when we're you know, not here to, we're not swimming against we're not going to swim against the tide. If a D-loop is required, we'll do a D-loop. And we're actually going to manufacture right now our D-loops are constructed of 1, 2, 3 sections of railing and 2 90-degree bends to bring it around. We'll be coming out this year with just that one single piece D-loop that can be connected and installed within seconds. And there'd be no, like I said, no custom bending, welding, and all that stuff required.
Yeah, awesome. All right, cool. Well, thank you, Brandon, for sharing that graphic with us so we could all take a look. Appreciate it. Yeah, I wish Zoom allowed you to like send images back and forth. That would be cool.
I'm glad you sent it.
Put in one last call for any last minute questions. Also, if you think of something after today's webinar, feel free to head over to Acelab, get in touch with Promenade over there. I believe we'll also have an opportunity after the webinar ends. There'll be a quick survey. Super helpful if you can fill that out. Let us know how you like today's event. And you can also enter any questions there if you have
One thing I'd like to add is that our entire philosophy is around simplicity. I've said kind of glibly, we sell simplicity. It happens to be a handrail. We want to take when we started the company, we thought it was an installation problem. It's an everything problem, depending on who you're talking to, how to measure, who's going to install it, when am I going to get it? So all these things, is it going to arrive in good condition? We've spent hours and hours just on the packaging to make sure it gets from our place to your job site in good condition. So what took Uncle David 6 months, we can do in 2 days. It's a modular system. I've received, like I said, we're in Montreal. I received a call from Los Angeles on a Thursday morning. It was designed, shipped, and installed Friday afternoon. Code compliant, 15-foot, multiple bend handrail.
So,
yeah, by the homeowner, by the way.
wow. Wow, very cool. All right. Well, if there are no last minute questions, then we can go ahead and let folks go a minute or two early. But I just want to say thank you to everybody who came and participated today. We really appreciate your engagement, asking so many questions, and your engagement in the survey as well. And thank you, Rob and Janice, for presenting today's course and being so on top of the Q&A. Really appreciate you guys coming out today. So hope everybody has a great rest of their Thursday, and we will see you soon.
I hope we've made what can be a dry subject a little more engaging.
Definitely.
All
You
right.
always make handrails interesting, Rob.
The oxymoron, exciting, cool handrails.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Cool. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye.